Hey everybody, welcome back to Backlog Banter. Today you've got a very special combination of boys. You've got myself and Tanner, and we're here today to talk about something that Timo and Tucker are not for some reason into, the fucking fools, and that is The Mandalorian. Now,
Yes.
we are here today because we are about at the mid-season point, so Tanner and I are going to talk about the first four episodes of season two, what we like, what we don't like, where we think the show is going. So Tanner, how are you feeling?
I'll be honest with you, Abram. I am preferring the first season so far.
Oh,
There's
okay.
there's something about there's just something off about this season. I don't know. I can't really place my finger on what it is. Maybe it's because I feel like in the lead up to the season, it was really selling itself as this is it. The Mandalorians were getting thrown into all the Star Wars stuff. This is it. And then which would have been like a nice improvement from the first season, which was very contained. There's comparisons to westerns and things like
Yeah.
that. But this season, the first episode was sort of that contained sort of experience again, with a huge note at the end of that being, well, this is a spoiler discussion, so
Yes.
it was Boba Fett at the very end of the episode. And I thought, okay, this is it. We're going to get Boba Fett versus Mandalorian. There's going to be a really interesting dynamic. And then it sort of moved on. And there was the one with the frog lady and the ice planet, which is a contained experience within itself again. And then the last two episodes, I guess, we're getting more into like the actual plot of the season, which might be a little bit of a. How many episodes are left? Four. We have four episodes
Yeah.
left, and we're just getting into like the setup of the real conflict of this season. I feel like it's a misstep. Also, I feel like there's something about the dialogue of this season that seems a little bit too stilted and forced, especially between the Mandalorian and the pit droid lady. You know what I'm
Uh-huh.
talking about?
I do.
Yes. But yeah, those are my sort of general thoughts. I really hope that it'll get like cool and very Star Warsy in the latter four seasons, but I'm just not high on it so far.
It's interesting to talk about the plot structure because they're like, hey, Boba Fett's here somewhere. Ahsoka Tano's gonna show up.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
gonna retake Mandalore. We got the fucking Moff Gideon. He's got the dark saber. They're trying to. We got we got a lot of stuff in
There's
the
all these
works.
chess pieces on the board, and none of them have moved.
None of them have moved. However, I prefer season two to season one, and the reason
Interesting.
I do
Okay.
is because my biggest problem with the second season is exactly what you're saying. It's its serialized nature showing
Hmm.
itself very clearly. It's very much people talked about this last season, but it's a fucking video game quest structure.
Yeah.
I need to do this, so you need to do this for me, and then we're gonna go do this together. It's side quest after side quest. As we just need to get to this planet, but it's gonna take fucking four different sub
Yeah.
actions to actually get there. But for me, the strength of the Mandalorian has always been the fact that it takes its time
Hmm.
to chew its scenery and have these really weird Star Wars characters show up. I
Yeah.
think this show is at its best when it's more contained, and we can spend time talking with the Tusken Raiders, and we can spend time ferrying this frog lady around so she can rebuild the assassin droid and you can talk through it. I think it's these smaller moments that make the Mandalorian feel distinct and make it feel special. And I also just like the slower pace of the narrative after fucking J.J. Abrams sticking a bajillion needles in my arm trying to get me high in Rise
Yeah.
of
Is
Skywalker.
this working for you? We'll give you everything. Is any of it working?
I think none of it worked, but I think
Yeah.
this is a lot slower and
Hmm.
engaged me in that respect, which is why actually I think the weakest episode so far was episode four where we returned to Navarro.
I agree. I think I agree.
I think that the first episode of season two I think is easily the strongest.
Yeah, out of the season, I'd say so. Because, yeah, well, the reason I think that season or the first episode is the strongest and the fourth episode is the weakest of the season so far is that the fourth episode really stinks of that structural issue that we were talking about.
Yeah.
It trying to balance this grand plot that it's setting up as what, but still battling with its roots of being like um, a very serialized TV show.
Yeah, and it makes me start to wonder whether the a new director every episode thing is a good idea. It makes me wonder how much credence there is to the rumors of production not going especially
Hmm.
well. because it felt like they blinked a little bit with that fourth episode. They're like, okay, we got to start moving, because
Yeah.
you go through these really, I think, lavish and interestingly assembled first 3 episodes where you're seeing new aspects of the Star Wars universe, and you're seeing the Mando be cool, but there's a groundedness about him.
Mhm.
He sometimes he's getting fucked up in combat, and he needs Bo-Katan to come in, and there's all this stuff happening, and the way it unfolds feels very organic and natural. Like he's just this fucking, he's a Mandalorian, but he's this outer rim everyman going on this big adventure, and that feels very fun and quaint in a way that I think Star Wars needs.
Yeah.
Um, and then you just get to the siege, and okay, now there's this grand imperial conspiracy, and we've got
Mhm.
fucking the Empire's
I
back and everything. I don't know.
I do have a question. So there was the big shocking reveal, like panning shot of those black suited figures in
Yeah.
the hallway. Do you know what that was? Were they just like death troopers, or what was going on there?
So I was trying to look at the armor. I didn't recognize it. I didn't know if we're going. Let's get real fucking nerdy. I didn't know if we're going Dark Forces,
Oh,
super soldiers. I don't know exactly what that was. It wouldn't make sense in the timeline for them to be Death Troopers. I
okay.
don't think. They seemed bioengineered, which makes me feel like we're on
Yeah,
some
they were
Dark
in like
Forces shit.
well, there was
So
also that tank that like
yeah.
with the strange like amorphous being floating in there. So yeah, just more of you think they're gonna move the queen or their king on the chessboard, and they're like, no, we're gonna put another knight on the table. I'm like, okay, we have lots of moving parts here that haven't moved at all.
And what's interesting about that is that they're all interesting pieces.
Yes, exactly.
But I don't know if this show is any more in concert with what it wants to be. That's why I'm really curious to see what episode 5 does, if it slows the pace back down
Hmm.
or what happens, because Ahsoka Tano's got to show up, and
Yeah. Well, we did see her. She was hooded in episode 3. That we saw her for about 2 seconds.
we also saw Boba Fett maybe
Yeah,
for
in a
like two
hood for
seconds,
two
and then
seconds.
he's gone. So I don't know. I think these chickens have to come home to roost at some point. I
Yes.
don't think we can wait too much longer. Although I would be totally fine with another 4 procedural adventures, because there's something really charming about the show, I think.
Oh yeah.
If you remove its structural components, is that I like the way that the father-son relationship between Mando and Baby Yoda is being developed a little
Hmm.
bit more. Uh,
I think you mean the child.
yes, I'm sorry, the child. There was something a little bit annoying to me about the child in season 1,
Hmm.
because he really felt like he was just window dressing.
Yeah. I actually. They seem to be still trying to recapture that Baby Yoda magic in season 2, when the meme and the novelty of it has sort of come and gone. Because they
Yeah.
cut back to him, they do reaction shots, they tried to do the little bit with him and the eggs, and it just didn't have the same shine that it did in season 1.
I
So
I think the reason it did for me is because of that dynamic that's being fostered,
okay.
where Mando's like his dad, and he's like, okay, you're gonna sit here and you're gonna be respectful. I think
Hmm.
that when he's staying with the frog people before he goes to fucking try to massacre their family line by eating all of their eggs, which I thought, I guess people are really up in arms about this whole plot point.
Listen, it's a fake TV show, okay? Chill. It's a fake TV show. It's
it's
Star Wars,
it's a
okay?
fucking baby Yoda who's hungry eating frog eggs. It's like
if
I
they if he eats all the frog eggs, fucking John Favreau can be like, JK, there's a billion of these guys just on a different planet. Because that's how Star Wars is. You think something of big of substance happens, and then they can just be like, oh, but there's another thing. Don't worry.
But I also think that there's an interesting relationship with just fan service in general in this season that feels somewhat tasteful. This feels, the Star Wars still has this ridiculous problem where a lot of the most interesting characters are peripheral to the main saga episodes.
Yeah.
So you're like, where the fuck were Cal Kestis, Cal Katarn, Ahsoka Tano, Bo-Katan, all of these really interesting characters. Where were
Hmm.
they? And I like seeing the Mandalorian hopefully follow up on some of those things, having Bo-Katan show up, but I didn't see that. I didn't have that spoiled for me. So I was like, what the fuck? What's she doing
Yeah.
here? This is cool. And I think that's the bottom line, is that I'm just a huge Star Wars nerd, so the show is just cool.
Yeah,
It's fun seeing the Quarren and the Mon Calamari, and they've got this fucking fishing settlement, and you see
yeah. And then
Mandalorians
there's
doing
like,
cool Mandalorian stuff. I don't know,
yes.
you know.
It is a very good show for showing you niche little aspects of the Star Wars universe. And I think that's where the first season excelled and where the second season is sort of stumbling a little bit. Because yeah, like looking back, like we said, the first episode of season 2 was like classic Mandalorian stuff. He was on it. It was a contained adventure. You had the fun appearance from Timothy Oliphant wearing Boba Fett's armor, which is really cool. Um, there was the crate dragon, right? That's what it
Yeah,
was called. I was scrolling through TikTok as I'm like to do,
sure.
and I saw someone point out the fact that when the crate dragon like comes out of its cave, the aspect ratio changes as the black bars, and then they slowly disappear. When I didn't even notice that when I was first watching it, like, man, that's fucking crazy and awesome. And yeah, that first episode just doesn't seem to be meshing with the rest of the series.
Yeah, I think it just depends what you go into the show hoping for,
Yeah.
and what they actually want to do with it in the end. Because I was absolutely, fully, completely on board the first 3 episodes, and I really didn't have pause until that fourth, because I still
Hmm.
there was something really interesting about the weird horror aspect that gets brought in episode 2, and and
Yeah. Yeah.
and having the other Mandalorians show up in episode 3. I like seeing these conflicts between Mando's worldview and other characters' worldview. I think because the plot moves so slowly, you're able to have these more interesting moments that you don't have time for in a lot of other Star Wars storytelling.
Hmm.
And so I just hope that that is what we continue down for the rest of the season, although that may come at the cost of the overarching narrative. So it's just an interesting balance they're going to have to strike in the second half.
Yeah. So speaking of the overarching narrative, would you say that the main goal of this season, because they have a few, it's to A, return Baby Yoda to the Jedi,
Yeah.
and B, return to Mandalore, retake Mandalore, which was sort of introduced in episode 3. But yeah, I guess we can. Do you want to talk about where we think the last 4 episodes are going to go?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I think that all of these plot lines are going to be. Did you ever watch the Clone Wars?
No, I've never seen the Clone Wars. I need to watch it. It's high up on my to watch list.
The Clone Wars is a really awesome show when you're watching it live every week when you're what, like 8 when it comes out. And
Sure.
if you it's still a very good show, but you're gonna fucking run into some filler arcs, let me
Okay.
tell you something.
Well, yeah, that's. I've always said that this is a one-off thing. I'm going to say. I've always said that about network television. I don't like network television. Lots of filler. The reason why I stopped watching and now despise The Walking Dead because it's a very cool, long-running series, and then they just chalk you lots of drama in there with like cool zombie stuff at the beginning and the end. But that's besides the point. Um, yeah, network television not good. Thank you, Disney, for enlightening us with Disney Plus. Also, quick thing, I like that the episodes aren't like a set 40 minutes. Like I
Yes.
think episode 3 was like half an hour. Cool stuff. The episode should be as long as it needs to be.
I totally agree. And the reason I brought up the Clone Wars is because Ahsoka and Bo-Katan have history in the Clone Wars. And so what I think we're pretty clearly moving towards is we're gonna find Ahsoka. Ahsoka is going to feel obligated to help Bo-Katan, so Mando is gonna be wrapped up in his fucking this is the way obligation to
Oh,
everybody.
interesting. Yeah.
And going and delivering Baby Yoda is going to turn into helping retake Mandalore, which is probably gonna culminate in the Mandalorians against Moff Gideon, and that's where the show's gonna
Yes.
end, which
Mhm.
sounds really fucking cool if they can execute.
Yes. Fucking Giancarlo Esposito with a dark saber versus the Mandalorian. Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah, so I think that's where the show is moving. I don't know where Boba Fett comes into it. I don't really
That's a
think he
yeah,
does.
I had forgotten about that. You don't think you don't think they return to like they do the classic Star Wars return to normal after a one-off thing where Boba Fett's going to actually die?
Just what's weird about it is that if he's felt no obligation to get his armor back or leave Tatooine in
Mhm.
however many years it's been,
What has it been? It's been like 5 years or something like that
I
since
forget
the end of
exactly how
6.
number. Yeah.
Okay.
But I just don't know where he factors in. I wouldn't be surprised if he because this show's obviously gonna get a third season. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if he pops up again for a little bit, but he doesn't really get fleshed out this season at all.
Hmm.
Because I just don't see where he tracks unless he's like, hey, you know what? All of a sudden, fuck it, I'm gonna go fight on Mandalore too because
Yeah.
I want to do that.
I don't even know what his motivation would be. Yeah, like you said, if he hasn't felt the need to leave Tatooine and get his armor back, he sort of looked menacingly at Mandalorian, so maybe he's just pissed at him for some reason.
The other possibility, which was brought up to me by Kieran Fifield, shout out to Nintendad, he's the editor in
Ah,
chief over there, my old boss. What he brought up to me is, what if it's not Boba Fett? I think it pretty clearly is Boba Fett,
yeah.
but it could be Captain Rex.
Oh
It
yeah.
could be other clones. And if it was Captain Rex, there would be a little bit more reason for him to show up around
Yeah,
Ahsoka, but that
alongside.
just doesn't make sense because the people
He's like
John, yeah,
also his appearance, he's like bleached white, no hair, like stomach acid from the Sarlacc. It's Boba Fett. Let's be honest with ourselves here.
it's pretty clearly Boba Fett. I don't think that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are dumb enough to have the Boba Fett armor and then
In
have
this
fucking
episode.
Captain Rex up on a hill and have people not draw that comparison.
Ah, classic bait and switch. You thought it was the beloved Boba Fett character, but in fact, it's Captain Rex. Gotcha.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know how he's going to factor back in. But I'm pretty sure that's the climax that season 2 is moving towards.
Yeah. Um, I think that's a pretty safe bet. I don't think. I don't know.
What
I
I'm
was just
happy
gonna.
about
Yeah.
is the production value of this show is high enough that I think you could pull off a huge final Mandalore Imperial
Oh yeah,
battle.
absolutely, absolutely. I'm just wondering if Disney will have if the showrunners and obviously the higher ups at Disney will have the foresight to cut this off when it needs to be cut off. Season 3 or season 4, if they decide to split up the Jedi and the Mandalorian plot points, unlike us who we use our big brain Star Wars nerd brains to intertwine those two stories. But I feel like if they want to stretch it out, they'll probably split those two storylines up. Um, I'm just wondering. I just wonder which one they'll go with first. Quite honestly.
I kind of think that the Mandalorian is set up in a way that it could persist perpetually until Disney straightens out what they're doing with Star Wars on a cinematic level.
Whew, that'll be the day. Quite honestly,
They should just
if
hire me.
once, yeah, please hire Abram. He knows more about Star Wars than anyone who ever made Star Wars. Fuck you, George Lucas. Fuck you, Dave Filoni. We'll get Abram Buner in there. He'll set the Star Wars straight. But yeah, I think also it'll be interesting if they want to end the Mandalorian and sort of pick up that slot with the Kenobi series.
Sure. I think Star Wars really is set up for this sort of television. And not to get too far off of The Mandalorian, but I don't think a Kenobi show is nearly as interesting because I think one of the most frustrating aspects of Star Wars that God King Ryan Johnson addressed and then
Mm-hmm.
J.J. Abrams said, no, you can go fuck yourself, is the idea that Star Wars exists outside of like three bloodlines that are important. I, I,
Yeah.
I think that a Kenobi show is just beginning to swirl that fucking canon vortex before it gets sucked right back into the Skywalker saga again. I
Mm-hmm.
think so much of the strength of The Mandalorian and why I'm really loving season 2 outside of episode 4 is just the fact that Star Wars is so much bigger than what we see in the movies. And as someone who's read a lot of expanded canon and played a lot of video games and read a lot of
Mm-hmm.
comics, there's a lot out here that we get to see a little bit of, and I think that that's just the real strength of this show is showing that to us. So I hope that if this show ends, we get something that is not, hey, here's a principal character again. And I'm excited for
Mm.
the Kenobi show, but I want the
I mean, yeah,
universe to be
there's
expanded.
there's a certain appeal, especially to the prequel fanboys out there who want to see Salt and Pepper, Ewan McGregor, fucking dancing around Tatooine, cutting people left and right with his lightsabers. But yeah, I think it's time that we make our biggest prediction. Something that I've been wondering about this entire time.
Okay.
At the end of this season, do you think Baby Yoda talks? And secondary question, does he talk backwards like Yoda?
So
That's the biggest question.
I forget who was talking about this, but they're like, why the fuck would he start talking backwards if he's only heard people talking forwards this whole time? So
Who's to
so
say?
I was thinking about that.
It seems that he was born with the Force, so maybe he's born with the Yoda speak as well.
I think what they're moving towards is that he's not going to talk or do something like that, but he's going to do some kind of incredible feat of force power that's going to save everyone's ass.
More incredible. At the end of season one, he like caught the explosion, right? Or no, he blocked it from the Mandalorian. That's what he did.
Yeah, we've seen him. I just think that that they're moving towards him moving hell and earth in some capacity with the Force because I don't think you're just going to play off the Force for, oh, hey, he wants some blue macaroons, and that's all he's going to do with the Force in season two.
That was weird that they put just regular macaroons in there. They exist in Star Wars.
But I don't think
Um,
he's going to talk. I think that even the people who are doubling down on Baby Yoda this hard realize that that's probably a bridge too far.
well, I never after the Rise of Skywalker, I never put anything out of the question for Star Wars.
That's
I
fair.
think if he does do the big show with the Force, he might pull a Star Killer from Force Unleashed and just straight up pull a Star Destroyer out of the sky, just
That's a
fucking
great
crash that
reference.
baby into a planet. But that's yet to be seen.
Yet to be seen. I think that's about all I have to say about The Mandalorian. I don't know if you
I
have anything
think,
else to add.
yeah, I really hope it picks up in the last 4 episodes for me, but I'm not grooving with it this season.
What's interesting is I watched that first episode when it premiered, and then I
Hmm.
kind of stopped and banked up a couple episodes. The last thing I want to say is I'm just not happy with the weekly release. I get why they're doing it,
Yeah, they got to
but
stay in the conversation.
got to stay in the conversation. But I don't know, for a show that moves at the pace that The Mandalorian moves, I don't necessarily know if it's the best call. I get why they're doing it, but man, I even if they were like, hey, here's half of the season and we're gonna drop the other half like in a couple weeks,
Yeah.
I don't know. But I am eagerly anticipating Friday, not only because by the time that's done, my classes will be done,
Oh,
but
thank
because
the
I get some
Lord.
fucking Mando.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That week to week thing might not work for the Mandalorian, but hey, you know what it will work for? The Snyder Cut. But that's a conversation and surely a debate that's yet to come. So with that, I think we will bid you adieu. And as always, this is the way.
except for when it isn't the way, and then
Except for when it isn't the way, of course.
she'll say it's the way again, and we'll be like, hey,
But
yeah,
for all intents and purposes, this is the way. Thanks
the
for
way
watching, guys.
the way is subscribing to Backlog Banter,
Yes.
liking the video, checking us out on audio feeds.
Oh,
Timo's
yes,
been
we
putting
have
in good
those.
work.
Yeah.
And we keep saying, hey, let's promote this, and we never do. So go check us
Well,
out on Spotify.
we just did, and thankfully you remembered. I was trying to do a clever Star Wars ending, and you did the actually important stuff. So, thanks for watching, guys.
Goodbye.